one which is perpetuating side marketing, because they are not paying farmers timelessly. So farmers being rich now also, they will side market their product where they get their payments timelessly. So we need to ensure that we need to see the Ministry of Lands as well as COTCO giving all the farmers, like what the President says, we are going to leave no place, no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight on the aspect of beneficiation. There was no in the presentation, this also goes for the other parastatals that we didn't present. Is there a provision, even through the budgets, where they talk about further processing instead of just selling as a raw material? Because we lose a lot of value, and I think even the President mentions this a lot, that exporting of raw material, we lose a lot of value, there's a big opportunity cost there by sending it out as a raw material. We don't grow. So I want to understand if there's been that factor, whether through the parastatal of COTCO, yes, they're talking about their challenges, but that's why the budget is there, where they put in to say for us to then market all the clothes that are imported in Zimbabwe can be made in Zimbabwe. So have they factored that in? If you can just give us a brief outline, and also for all the others who are going to be presenting. Thank you.
The last one, Honorable Sapukanya, the beneficiation. So basically that is where the country must go, where we don't sell raw materials, and where we don't transport, where we don't eventually pay for transport. You know, imagine, I'll give the example of Chivu irrigation scheme, where the government constructed the dam, put the 120 hectares of wheat, and the farmers harvested wheat, the 60 of them, and all that wheat was taken to Chivu GMB, and then it was bought by a milling company in Marondera, and then they produced the flour, they made bread, and then that bread is transported back from Marondera to Chivu, and then to Chivu Dam for these 60 beneficiaries to buy bread. So even if the bread was not supposed to cost $1, it will cost $1, because the wheat is traveled a long distance, and then it has come back in these trucks which chew diesel, which is very expensive. So the solution with that is really beneficiation. We need to be able to capacitate our production points, our farms, our farmers, and our growth points to have processing and semi-processing plants for some of these things that we can easily do. Masvingo kwaimbova nekismet bakery, chimwe chaimbonzi aroma, and then they all disappeared. But those small bakeries would absorb the small producers, who will then just get their wheat to those small, and then they will produce bread cheaply. And this applies to cotton, this applies to maize, this applies to most of vegetables. So this is the thrust of the Rural Development 8.0. It's really to do with production, it's to do with rural development, it's to do with rural industrialization, where we produce our goods and services at the local level. This is why we are also appealing to you to say, when you see the Rural Development 8.0 programming come as Program 8, please support it, because that is what will lead to this beneficiation. It's only not the goods, it's also creating jobs for the young people out there who will then be, because if you are going to produce bread at Chivu Dam, you are supposed to employ someone who knows about baking, about milling. So our young people will then be employed. So I just thought I should start with that. The farmer-centric approach, yes, definitely honorable. We should be farmer-centric, and we are working with COTCO. Remember, the government is actively engaged in ensuring that part of the shareholding for COTCO reverts back to government so that we are able to make certain decisions. So the farmer-centric ethos is critical. What you said, that side marketing is a result of COTCO, yes, that's true. Because any rational farmer, a farmer is a businessman, that is what we are preaching. Any rational farmer would really make marketing options. And when they say make a certain marketing options, we call it side marketing. But we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the farmers make certain decisions because of economic reasons. So we hear you there, Honorable. Honorable. In terms of tillage services, yes, there is tillage that is being provided to cotton farmers. I think the ceiling is about 80,000 hectares for this season. We will investigate on the selection of these farmers that are getting the tillage services, but it's limited to about 80,000 hectares, and the COTCO has about 300,000 farmers under them. So I think we will investigate and see where the discrepancy is. The Zim-Dollar component not being a problem, I think it's in the context of the fact that now the export process for the cotton that has been marketed is coming, and when it comes to the banks, automatically there is liquidation of a certain Zim-Dollar component, which will then allow onward payment. But maybe we need to say up to that point when those payments start to come in. We are still in a country, but we believe that will come this month, so the Zim-Dollar component will not be a problem. I think that is what the explanation that he wanted to make. Yes, the cotton was collected, not bought, because no payment has been done for most farmers. So, but it must be collected, otherwise it will deteriorate in terms of quality. Honorable Nyabani, we need to get it to a safe place so that we can then deal with the payment issue. The 35 billion bid and the payment of workers, I think I will leave that to Vachikasha to quickly answer us.
In terms of our bid, I think it was for inputs distribution and the actual input. So that is the budget that we submitted. In terms of salaries, I think the same issue of liquidity has been affecting us. If we were a bit selfish, like I indicated, we've paid 17.1 million USD. If we were a bit selfish, I think we would be up to date with salaries. Just yesterday, not yesterday, on Friday, we managed to get about 1 million. We could have opted to pay workers, but we then decided that we pay the farmer. So that's why we are in this situation. We have considered that we should pay the farmer first. We are getting the resources coming in slow, and that's not enough for both employees and the farmer. But of course, I understand employees are quite important, and we are doing everything that is possible to make sure that they are paid. As you may be aware, the proceeds for Lint start coming at this time of the year. So you start getting your income from the 13th month. You start inputs disbursement from around October, and you can only start expecting the Lint proceeds from about October the following year. So the proceeds are starting to come right now. That's when we can clear some of these obligations, given that we are failing to access money from the banks. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
For transporting, you said input distribution. If you say input distribution, it's an umbrella. Just be specific. It's for transport or for inputs buying?
Include all that, the fuel that we require to move the inputs. We also have people that will man those common inputs distribution points. They also need to be paid. So it's a comprehensive budget of the costs that we incur for inputs disbursement from the point of delivering those inputs to the common inputs distribution points until they get to the farmer. Thank you.
Yet we've also received about 43,000 metric tons of wheat, which we have received since the beginning of September. Then on the performance to date from January, we managed to sell in terms of sales, like what the PS highlighted. Unfortunately, we do sell quite a bit, but the money goes to Treasury. In other words, the SGR fund is managed by Treasury. We sold about 206 billion worth of grain, but like you said, it then went on to Treasury. To date, we have spent about 79 billion against a budget of 36 in terms of operating expenses, and like has been highlighted earlier, it was to do obviously with the exchange rate, which jumped along the way, and that influenced the increase in cost. But to date, we have made a profit of 86 billion against what we had budgeted 29. But like I said, this profit will then be transferred to Treasury. Then on our bid, which has been incorporated in the ministry's overall budget, we have budgeted for operating expenses 418 billion. And the bulk of that, we've got transporters. Like we said, we hire transporters to do depot-to-depot transfers. This is from northern regions to southern regions where they don't have much in terms of grain. Then operating expenses, 154 billion. Then intake resources, this is in respect of bags, tarpaulins, and what have you, which we use for intake purposes, 72 billion. Then we've got capital expenditure. We've got quite a number of assistance which we need to complete around the country. Then we've got some way bridges which we need to install in some of our depots. So that's then catered for under that capital expenditure. Then on grain purchases, the assumption here is on grain purchases, we are looking at spending about 1.1 trillion, but at the same time we'll be selling to millers. We expect to raise 1.1 trillion as well, which will cover it up to what we would have purchased. But like I highlighted, all these sales are then transferred to Treasury, who in turn then give us money to pay the farmers. I think basically that's the summary.
I think there's something on there. If I read what is it correctly, he said they made a profit of 86%. 86 billion profit. But the same guys who made that profit are failing to deliver inputs to the communities. How is that possible?
As and when we require resources, we then request to get those resources to move, to transport and so forth. But we in the first instance, the money from sales goes to the SGR fund, which is at Treasury. So that coming back now, we need then to request, and then it becomes a cash flow problem. Not that there is no money. The money is there somewhere. It's a cash flow problem which is handled. Thank you, Chair.
I just want to find out from the PMSEC how much are you retaining from no collection when you are submitting money to the fiscal.
GMB, maybe can help with the chair.
To fund operational expense. But unfortunately, for the past few months, there were no sales to talk about. Why? Because I guess it's because of the pricing, which if you want to compare with import quality price, our prices are a little bit on the higher side. That's why the sales went down. But otherwise, if there were sales, that $10 will go a long way to support our operation. But however, it will not be enough to pay our farmers. For farmer payments, we definitely need support from Treasury.
Are you going to manage to transport these inputs to farmers free, or otherwise they are going to pay? So as we are approaching, as the rains are falling now, do you have any mechanism?
Yeah, like what the EPA is highlighting, the bulk of the cost to transport them is to do with fuel, I guess, and the repairs. So what we've done is, through AMA and petrol trade, we are now availing diesel to transport them, so that at least we are pushing. In the same vein, we are also pushing over the Treasury to raise money so that we pay these farmers on time. And to go a step further, we were pricing, or rather charging, or having our charges in Zim dollars. Effective this week, we have changed that. We are now pegging that in US dollars, which will then be paid at interbank on the date of payment. So that will go a long way in pushing transporters and giving them an incentive to then carry. But otherwise, we don't encourage farmers to be charged. That's our policy. To say we are going to transport those inputs for free to us from our dealers.
I must emphasize that the presidential inputs should get to the farmer free of charge. That is what should happen. So the supplier is contracted to transport to GMB, and it is GMB responsibility to get the inputs to the distribution point. What we have seen in the past few weeks, and it didn't start this year, it has always been ongoing, where some people would then say, pay $1 so that we can quickly collect and so forth. Yes, we understand the challenges with the GMB transportation challenges and so forth, but making farmers pay and making beneficiaries pay is not part of our thrust. We don't encourage. In fact, it's not allowed to make anyone pay, because what that will make is that the presidential inputs, which are supposed to be free to the farmer up to when the farmer collects, then there is a payment. Certainly, the charges by Agritex are not above board, and ever since the minister was asked this question in Parliament, and he gave out his number to the public, he receives a lot of messages, of words, of names, of people that are charging, that are collecting money in the name of let's be fast, let's go and collect, GMB is useless, and so forth. And we now have started to receive those messages, and we are attending to those. We, even this morning, as early as 6 a.m., he was sending me what he received during the night, and I sent those to the particular ward and to the particular province to deal with those culprits who are making farmers pay. So let me say, Chair, it's certainly not allowed for anyone to charge for anything to do with the presidential inputs, and we are going to be dealing with those culprits. If there are any in your constituents, we will also attend to them and make sure that that situation is corrected. So on the Agritex side, those issues become disciplinary issues, because the distribution modalities which we send out to all Agritex officers are clear in terms of what should be charged to the presidential inputs, because there is no charge up to when the farmer receives them. For those, we also have cases where because those who distribute should be a committee. Agri-Tax is only a secretariat to this committee. The committee is it comprises the local councillor, comprises the local representative of the traditional leadership, comprises Agri-Tax secretariat, and the interest groups including GMB, who is the logistics manager. So that committee must sit and go and collect inputs, organize transport through GMB. That's why GMB is in that committee, to ensure that inputs are collected on time. So if some members of those committees, we have heard that they just go, two of them, Agri-Tax and another, and they say, please pay so that we can quickly bring your inputs. That is not allowed. And I should categorically say that it's not allowed and it's criminal if anyone does that. So dollar, I've heard $3.50, $2, all those payments, if you calculate the amount of monies that are involved there, it's really criminal. Because if a 30-ton truck is carrying 600 bags, and if it's $1, that's $600. There's no transport like that which costs $600. If they pay $3.50, that's already more than 1,800. There's no transport that does that. So these are arbitrary things, opportunists, criminals that are doing this, and they should be brought to book. So, Chair, it's not a good thing that we hear, but I can assure you that we are attending to this. And yes, even within our system, we have Agri-Tax officers and other members in the ministry who are conniving, and we will find them, and we will make sure that they are brought to book. Chair, thank you. Let me just talk on the logistics. So I will just give you, so that you have a picture of how much we are moving. Our smallholder farmers require about 150,000 metric tons of D, and then a similar amount for top dressing. If you calculate the amount of trucks required to move that, it's a lot. In fact, we should start now to move inputs for next year so that we don't have challenges. But because of the budgetary constraints and so forth, we always start moving when we can move. So it becomes logistically very difficult to move huge quantities. However, for us to do that, why we don't get to the distribution point is that our distribution points are in the world. And for most places to navigate a 30-ton truck, which makes economic sense for the transporters to transport from their factory to Chiwi, Chairman, 30-ton truck would do good. But if we're going to go into the real Ward 27, Chiwi, it becomes impossible for the truck to navigate to get there. So that's why we then said, for quick, we must deliver to GMB. Then GMB does the smaller trucks to do the word distribution. So that's one point. In Matebeleland, for example, we actually encourage the suppliers to move it by rail to GMB. Then from GMB, they then try to move it to Lisulu. And your transporters now, the transporters, if you are going to go to Lisulu, for those who have gone to Victoria Falls, using that road from Bulawayo to the Widapa Cross, Wangepaya, you would see that even Ushirim Tad Road, you would not want to drive your car. And then when you do the 100 kilometers from Bakros going to Lisulu, which there is a GMB depot, by the way, Ipapo, that 100 kilometers would take you half a day because the roads are not good. So transporters shun those roads. So it's very, very, logistically, it's very difficult for most of our places where we want to get these these inputs to.